everybody, welcome back to Always Right. I'm Chris Thomas. We have a lot of cool guests here today, and everybody, almost everybody in this room is gay. Or some.
Almost.
You're only half.
Raven, don't
I'm learning this for a reason.
But we have, so this is a very special edition of the show. I'm going to put everybody's TikTok handle on the bottom so you can follow. This is Pocket Gay, also known as Pocky Gay, because she didn't make her account spelled correctly this time around on her 15th account. We also have, Raven, what's yours? Just say it out loud.
Raven the Rebel.
Raven the Rebel. I'll put all of the handle at the bottom. This is my wife, Based Bisexual Life. You can follow her on TikTok too. We are going to be reacting to, I don't know if anybody out there has watched these Jubilee videos. I know some of us have seen this video, some of us haven't on this call. But we're going to react. I'm gonna shatter the stereotype, or shatter the notion on the left that if you're not gay, you can't have an opinion on gay stuff. I am a straight bigot, and I'm gonna give my opinion, even though I shouldn't. And we're going to have a great time. So I am going to play this video.
Because that was what was served to us.
Pride is still necessary.
Yeah, I think Pride's necessary, but we need a PR revamp. Yeah, I think we need a rebrand. I take a lot of issues with what I see at Pride parades now, just because, as we've discussed previously, I think that it's a little bit over-sexualized. We're celebrating essentially sex rather than love. And we have people running around riding bikes with their balls out in front of kids. And for me,
Where are you seeing this?
Yeah,
what prides are you going to?
New York City and Seattle, both of those had naked people walking the streets.
San
Francisco. One of them was on a bike. I saw the video of him on a bike. I didn't want to.
I would never have my balls out on a bike. That sounds dangerous.
Well, no, me either.
That's dangerous.
Me either. But it's the fact
exist.
that it is allowed because we have this shield of it's pride, don't mess with gay people because of our history, which is granted. But people are afraid to look at our culture and say that's not acceptable, because if straight people were walking around doing that, it would be a totally different discussion.
I don't think that's the majority of the issue, though. I mean, the reality is that being visible, period, is vital.
Absolutely.
We can be visible without being sexual.
None of us will be alive to see the day when heterosexual people and homosexual people have equal agency in what's allowed and what's not allowed in the public space.
Me personally, I actually think Pride is very necessary. I love it. I wouldn't say Pride parades. I feel like you guys are leaning towards like the parades itself. Pride is like liberation,
The pride of who you are and
yes,
yourself,
and
accepting yourself.
Yeah, accepting yourself and having the people around you in your circle really accept you. It really tells the future generation, like, not only is it okay, but look how far we've come. Yeah. At 2011, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy was abolished. I'm in the military, and had that not been abolished, I would not be able to be, a minority, be openly gay, and still be able to serve my country.
Yeah, and I want to just say thank you for your service before I move on. And that's a prime example of the Pride that I would love to attend, is someone who highlights service members, gay CEOs, people who are successful, who are contributing to society. Celebrate who you are, love who you are. But the Pride is no longer about being overly promiscuous because we're not allowed to. We don't need to overcorrect to the point that we start to get backlash. We need to correct our PR.
But I still think we're looking at a small group of the people that are at Pride.
But the small groups, they speak the loudest.
No, but they don't always. You said you saw 2 people naked.
Two separate instances of groups of people who were naked
Out of
with their
hundreds of
butts
thousands.
out.
Exactly. Around the world. And
but
like
that
you were
gets
saying,
highlighted.
Looking at specific things with a level of shame, and then have to look at where are we shameful within ourselves, and why is that something that we should be ashamed of in general? Like, why is nudity shameful in general?
I agree with you about nudity itself is not sexual. I don't think so. Because I have been to new places and it's not sexual, but when you make it sexual, that's the problem. It can be indecent exposure at some of these things, and Pride needs to not be complacent and address it.
This should be interesting.
Yes, heels. Come on.
I know. I'm alone on this one. But the reason I'm alone on this one is because I organized one of the most successful prides in my community in 2016. I invited groups that were outside the norm, like the NRA and the local GOP, including the Democrats. Because for me, it was important that this event reach the entire community more than just saying we are a sexual being. We wanted to educate the people. I was told I was never allowed to help them again because how dare I invite a hate group like the NRA when all I wanted to do was arm LGBT people and educate them on how to protect themselves. Because as you guys said, there are those people who would hurt us. I live in a very, very red community. Okay, Mike Garcia is my representative. And
Santa Clarita?
Yeah, in Santa,
Me
yeah, Santa
too.
Clarita. But I dressed like this to galas, big government galas, realtor galas. No one has said anything to me, and in fact, all I get is positive affirmation that, hey, you're living your best life. And I say, it's not really necessary because I can walk down my street in heels and braids.
In
and
California.
Yeah, you are so privileged in that way.
Yeah.
I'm
In
so happy for you.
Republican-controlled
A recent
California,
A recent
yes.
poll of Californians found that 35% of Californians feel that homosexuality should be discouraged.
I've done this
so great
in
for
Michigan.
You that you're in an LA
I've done this
suburb.
in Michigan. I've done this in Tennessee. I've done this in Missouri.
And you've
I've
walked
done
around
this
like this in all those states.
Yes, I have.
I will say
Yes,
that
I have.
Santa
And I have had
Clarita is slightly
absolutely
red.
no
It's not
issues.
completely
I walked
red.
into a backwoods bar in the middle of Nashville where it was a double wide that had been converted to a bar, and it was one of those record
What
scratch.
does your husband look like?
My husband is 6'4" and he's
And there's your
a man.
protection.
That's not my protection. I walk
bullshit.
in that community.
Guys, I find this funny because you can tell that this guy Mario. I like Mario, by the way. I've seen this.
I
video.
love Mario.
He's my. You're gonna like him even more the more you hear him. He
Oh, I'm
stirs the
sure.
pot here a little bit, but I think he's speaking really genuinely and honestly that his experience as a gay man is that he's not oppressed, even in red
Yeah.
areas. And do you notice how the guy with the curls on the end, in the sleeveless shirt,
The macho sleek guy. He thinks
Oh,
he's so
yeah,
right.
sure.
He has to talk over everyone.
he's doing everything he can to invalidate his experience.
Oh,
So
of
what
course
does
he
your husband
is.
look like? Oh, your husband's tall,
Oh, why
your
wouldn't
husband's
he?
strong. Oh, so you're privileged.
Because it goes against the narrative that they're trying to push. That's why.
Oh yeah, you know
Absolutely.
that that just reminds me. Like I've had conversations like this with like gay liberals, and they will look for any reason to invalidate me. Like this dude, this dude pulled up the fact that my father's in my life, that I'm privileged. Apparently,
There you
so
go. Right.
yeah, my dad's in my life.
Yeah,
I'm not
they-
fatherless.
They
so
don't want to
apparently
hear
I'm
it. Anything that
privileged.
goes against their narrative, they don't want to hear. Now, Clark, I follow and I've been following him for a long time, but I don't agree with him. And I usually agree with him. I don't agree with
Which
him.
one is Clark? I didn't
Clark
know anything.
is the he's the first conservative gay that was speaking in the white tee
Oh, got
shirt.
okay. All right.
So I
Ah.
follow him. I really like him, but I don't agree with him when he's like, oh, when he was talking to the gay service member, and he's like, yeah, well, that what part should be about? We should highlight gay CEOs. We should highlight gay service members. Why? Why does it matter if we're gay or not? That's really weird to me. To like be like, oh, look at this is a gay CEO. This is like a gay dog groomer, or this is like a gay military member. Like, what does our sexuality have to do with anything that we do? Why does that matter?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm hearing, I guess from you is you would be definitely on the side of probably no, we don't need pride today.
Yes, I'm on that side. I don't see
right.
it. I think it's weird. I think pride's weird. Like, why do I need to celebrate my sexuality? That's weird. Straight people
Because
don't do it.
And I hear what you're saying about like why does it matter if a CEO is gay? Because what it actually does is then it takes the spotlight off what their accomplishments as a CEO are, and then all you're talking about is their sexuality. And of course, sexuality is something that you're born that way. So why celebrate the thing that you have no control over? Why wouldn't you want to celebrate the things that you did with your own two hands and chose to do that made a positive difference? And that's one of the things I don't really understand, because if I I wouldn't celebrate a characteristic of mine that I have no control over, because where's the pride in that anyway? Because I am. who I
Yeah,
am, or
exactly.
I am.
Yeah, pride's weird to me, and they're like, oh, we're just celebrating who you are. Being gay is not who you are. It's who you
Right,
love
it's
and who you take to the bedroom, but it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with who you are at all.
Right, it's reductive because you're discounting other things about yourself that might be actually more important and worthy of celebration, and then you're reducing who you are to what genitals you're attracted to. I think you're totally right.
Yeah, so I've never like, and I used to be a liberal, and I used to go to Pride, and then like once I flipped sides, I was like, why are we celebrating this? This is really strange. I don't understand.
Totally, and they're using a specific tactic here. I feel like the liberal people here. The guy was talking about, I think it was Clark, that guy, and he was saying, well, I saw two different events where people had their balls hanging out, and then you hear the first thing out of the one of the other guys' mouths was, oh, so 2 out of hundreds of that, like basically
Yeah.
just invalidating what he was saying. That like, oh, it's just 2 out of, but we all know it's more than two.
It's like, yeah, he's
Definitely.
trying to manipulate, and he's trying to deflect, because that's what they always do.
Yeah. They're trying to minimize the severity of the situation. You know, I know because I've been to a pride parade in a big city with friends before. My dad didn't want to say anything because he didn't want to offend me, but yeah, it's more than.
From my perspective, I actually grew up in the Philippines where they didn't have pride parades. So when I first attended my first pride parade, it felt like, I don't know, it felt weird because we were celebrating that was like our everyday life. And so when they kept saying, "Oh, let's like uplift like the service members or whatever," I'm like, why would we do that? You know, like why would we start celebrating that? It's just so bizarre. And it's like, why would we? It's just like such a mundane thing that I thought that wasn't really relevant. I think,
Nicole, you even pointed out that even when they were in the Philippines, they didn't feel oppressed, right?
no, and like they were in corporate, you know, they were in the corporate world, you know, and where everything's a little bit more strict, right? They would go eat lunch together. I remember that as a kid. Sometimes they would bring us to their work because, you know, it was summer vacation. And, you know, we were out of school. And we would go to their office and they would just, you know, introduce us to their coworkers. And that was it.
Well,
and they treated us normal.
What this is also highlighting is there's a huge generational issue that young people, I don't mean young gay people, but young people in general don't know shit about oppression. They just don't.
No, they don't.
Because it was their grandparents and great grandparents that were oppressed, not them. And so it's silly because I think, you know, Nicole, you're talking about how your parents, even when they were in the Philippines, where it's predominantly Catholic, and they don't have gay marriage, they still didn't feel like they were in danger or oppressed. They just, you know, they were happier here because America was more free for them than the Philippines in comparison. But if they could feel not oppressed in a predominantly Catholic country where they didn't have gay marriage, then what is everybody whining about today?
Yeah.
I think that's what like kind of boggles
They're
my mind.
entitled. That's what it is. They're just entitled brats who want special privileges because they're gay. They think being gay is you're like extra special because you're part of the rainbow community.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're not. You're just annoying.
Dressed just like this in these heels, and not only do I not get hate, my husband gets more business.
I'm so happy for you that this is true for you. I really am.
Yeah, totally.
But the reality is that you represent a small minority of LGBTQ people and how they actually experience life in America.
To your like sense of freedom, which is so admirable, I think that those things are built on blocks of people who probably did feel that pride was necessary. So it's a beautiful thing that we can have the freedom to, you know,
change our mind.
Admire that.
Yeah.
And
and I think we all want everyone to feel the way that you feel, like you don't need it, but that's just not the case.
My name is John, and I am a Patreon member who is asked to read you this next prompt. The LGB should be separated from the TQIA+.
Saying they should be separated is not saying that one is, you know, less important.
Yeah, I agree.
So I do want to start with that. But I do think that the LGB is very specific, rooted in science. It's very clear as day. You have lesbian, gay, and bi. Main difference between male and female, we all know what that is.
the reason why I stepped forward with hesitation was because I think that there are such lived differences in experiences that we experience. Although collectively, I think that we all know the collective experience of being a sexual deviant. There just is a difference in lived experience that I think is important to talk about and acknowledge, and that's my grounds for agreeing with perhaps a separation.
Mine is very different. To be clear, the science is very solid on identities other than gender assigned at birth being valid. Science is very clear, robust, there is no question that it's legit. We, as cisgender people, do a really bad job of standing up for people who aren't cisgender. I call out the fact that cisgender queer people are treated differently than non-cisgender queer people, and until we do better, we don't deserve to have the letters be together.
Much better grounds.
So, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I think in general, this conversation can become very hostile because it seems like, you know, I'm like, oh, I don't want you to be a part, like, I don't want you to be my friend. I don't want to be with you, be next to you, be seen with you. And that's not the case. One is an identity and one is a sexuality. And that's just the simple difference between the two. Eventually, as both groups are fighting for their own personal interests, those are going to not work cohesively. So one is going to be quieter and one is going to get taken advantage of, et cetera. And it's not that we can't support the TQ+. Right. I just think that they're two vastly different things.
I think that you oversimplify identity versus sexuality, though, because there are tons of men who identify as straight who have, on occasion, with regularity, once in their life, sex with men, which is why...
They're bi. I think once with men, sure.
If you're a man who's regularly having sex with other men, you're not straight.
Yeah, no, you're not straight.
Yeah, no, you're not straight. You're bisexual.
You're not, you know.
Because he noticed, he said, men who at one point or regularly. No, if you regularly have sex...
you're bi.
Yeah, no. If you regularly have sex with men, you're bi. It's that simple.
Sure, experimenting, but I think if there is a guy that's identifying as straight that sometimes dabbles with men,
he might identify as straight, but he's not.
You're bi.
So two things. First of all, there are lots of gay men that we can call gay all day and all night that occasionally have sex with women, and we don't question whether or not they're gay.
They're bi.
But are you entitled to titling someone else's? Is
that
up to you?
The title is an objective fact. If you sleep with men and women, then you are bi.
What if someone that you were
I don't care what you
doesn't
feel.
agree?
Yeah.
If you don't agree, that's fine. But the fact is, you sleep with men and women, so you're bi.
Flat out.
Can we not talk about who we're having sex with? Just for this problem.
Because a lot of what's in the media today is sensationalized content about, you know, targeting children. A lot of it is valid, and some of it is not. But a lot of times, it's gay men that are doing it, and trans people are getting blamed for it when it's really gay men in drag. Right. And because the letters are together, people don't know the difference. And even when I first started coming out, the first thing that somebody said to me was, are you gonna transition into a woman? And I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. That has nothing to do with my sexuality. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but because they're together from an outsider's point of view, optically, I think if our goal is to educate the populace on who we are, then we need to make a more clear distinction between LGB and TQ+.
No, I don't disagree. I think it's just important that if we do that, we don't erase any of the validity of the people who are in the group that we're not a part of. And also, what I wonder about in this context is some people are born intersex, so they have sexual organs of both genders. Right. How do we identify under the criteria you guys have identified? How would we label them? Because if they have both and they have sex with only one gender, what are they?
It's such a rare case. I'm not
but
saying
it does
they don't
exist.
I
don't think the exception makes the rule.
Yeah, there's people born with 11 fingers.
I think as human beings, we like to package things that we can develop a palate for. We like to make things more palatable. We like to establish clear-cut rubrics for what is and what isn't a person. I think that's just the natural human tendency.
That's how our brain categorizes.
But I think that what separates us from the apes is that we can give credence to these differences and create pockets of space, at least for a discussion, if you don't necessarily agree or whatever.
I think it would be an incredible disservice to the transgender community who gave us a lot of the beginning for us to fight for our rights, a separation from them, now that we have our rights. That's just so privileged of us. Like Marsha P. Johnson threw that first brick at Stonewall, and because of her...
She didn't throw the first brick.
Or the second.
She got there at 2 a.m., first of all, and second of all, Marsha P. Johnson was also a gay man, so when she was fighting for those rights, she was fighting for gay rights because she was gay.
Was she a gay man because of the time that it was?
She didn't transition until long after Stonewall actually happened. But that's neither here nor there. We're here to defend. I'm here to defend the TQ being part of the LGB. Yes, there are some gay men that will overlook what's underneath the belt. That happens. But to say that you have to like them, that's wrong. And I also have a heart for the Q, because we can't clearly define the Q. When I was young, it was questioning. Now it's queer. Queer was a slur once upon a time. But I look at those people who were former homosexuals who now live a heterosexual lifestyle. They're never going to be accepted by the straight community, and they're not going to be accepted by our community. So I've put them under the Q umbrella. Those straight people who do have sex with the same gender on occasion, they would fall under that Q. They may not fall under the B. So I have a heart for them because they do exist in our spheres. We just can't put them on a pedestal above any of us because we're all in this together.
And I also don't think that they should be divorced because I'm a huge disability advocate. I have a mental health condition. It's very different from someone who uses a wheelchair. We still have a disability.
What you're getting at is that we're a minority.
Thank
They're a
you.
minority. And the more that you take apart those minorities, the harder it is for us to fight for our rights.
The queer community is already divided.
minorities.
Since the queer community is already divided, I think separating the two is going to make them even more divided and a lot more animosity between queer and T with LGB.
It's a double-edged sword because in one way it's like, okay, well, we don't want to divide too much because we don't want to lose our united front against heteronormativity or whatever. But then at the same time, if we can't teach the nuances of our various identities to a heteronormative society, then it's like, okay, well, aren't you gay, aren't you trans? Like it's all the same thing to them. So I think it's a balance between being all awash and then also noting that we are uniquely made up of all these different experiences. And
But I think if we had a
all agree
stronger
here that they
community,
all
like
matter.
that wouldn't be the case. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Like if you don't like me because who I am, I know that my brother right here, my sister right there is gonna like me and they're gonna support me. And that's all I need because it's all about my personal experience and what's in my circle. You don't need to be in my circle, but because it's within my own circle that I'm getting all this, belittlement and hatred. Everyone just wants to be accepted. Honestly, like that's the way it's looked at.
And can't we all, to some extent, identify underneath the Q? Your attraction maybe has shifted in some way to different types of men. Like, things are constantly evolving and, in my opinion, fluid. So to kind of force ourselves even into the LGB is to sit within the binary that doesn't help any of us anyways.
But I think all the Q stuff is just a matter of your personality.
Right.
Like we had so many different labels and you like this kind of person, then you're this sexuality, when reality just goes back to
But it's not
you're
a
gay,
function
straight,
of
or bi,
hetero- but
and then
that's
your personality.
But our
And it's
community is
just-
not doing itself any services by categorizing ourselves. Bear, twink.
Yeah,
And then you
twunk,
see it
yeah.
on the apps, on the profiles. Oh, no fats, no femmes, no this, no that. We're already segregating ourselves.
We can still be a community while having a better way of explaining what the differences are between the letters. Because, I mean, even in our conversation today, you guys are talking about a lot of anti-LGBTQ legislation. And as if I was a gay person watching, I would think, oh my gosh, like they're coming for my rights, they're coming for my rights. But a lot of times that legislation has to do with the TQ+. And I'm not saying I agree with it, we don't need to go into the legislation. All I'm saying is that the narrative that gay men are being attacked when other letters are, not giving any merit to the attacks, it is confusing and it's harmful to young gay men and their success because they're force-fed this narrative that they can't.
That's totally fair, but there's been over 560 legislation bills put into some sort of vote, right? And over 220 of those have been for transgender. That leaves, around 300 plus, not just at the TQ?
I think that there's a lot of nuance when it comes to the laws that we have to talk about, but either way, when you say over 500 LGBTQ+, the distinction between the two gets lost, and I don't think that it's...
I passed one of those laws.
No one's
I
saying it
passed
doesn't
one of those
matter.
laws in Nebraska that protects children under the age of 18 from receiving gender-affirming care and hormones. Because I've seen...
And you're proud of that.
Yes, I am very proud
I
of
am
that.
so ashamed
because,
of you.
Because I have friends who had their first experience with
amount of
affirming care.
internalized
Can I
homophobia
finish?
and queerphobia and
But can I
shame that you
finish?
are sitting here
But
with
can I
because
finish?
of the stuff you felt as a child
I'm sure a lot of us
is so
disagree with him, but
sad.
let him finish because we both have things
We can
to say.
all talk, but let's let
Because
each other
when I
finish.
passed this legislation that you say targets LGBT people, I sat next to a young girl who her first experience with this type of care was a double mastectomy at 15. She's now 19, doesn't
And
know
how
if she'll be
common
able
is
to.
that?
It's
It's
actually
not.
very common because
How common? I want a number.
Can
How
I
common?
finish?
How common?
Can I
This
finish?
Is, you
though?
passed
You're
the law.
asking me a question in the middle of my
passed
statement.
a law.
You
You passed a law that affects so many kids from feeling like themselves.
Yes, I did.
Transgender
I'm proud
kids.
of my law.
That's unfortunate, and I'm ashamed
If
of
that's
you
what it's going
because-
to take to get you to stop so I can finish my thought, I appreciate that.
All right, you know
So-
what? I'm going to shut up until you finish, but I would really like to say something when you're done.
Sure. The person that I testified with, who their experience was a
The
double
one
mastectomy.
person.
Let him
The
finish,
one
let him finish,
person.
let him finish,
Are you
let him
one
finish.
step
person.
in? Like,
Let
can
him
we
finish, let him finish.
People talk.
Okay, that one person was one person in Nebraska, but I know a plethora of
what
other
state do you live
people.
in?
Hold on, let him finish. Let
I
him
know a
finish.
plethora of other people in other states
The
all over this
generalizations
country
are so easy. I
who
know a
are
plethora of
feeling-
people all over the
who-
Let's
country.
pause.
Can
and
we
then
not
can-
do this?
we'll
Like,
get it. Okay.
what is the? Can we let them talk?
Let's just
You're gonna
pause.
get time to talk.
I don't
It's
appreciate
okay.
that.
I know, I'm furious too, but let's
here's
let
the
him
deal.
finish.
He's pissed off more than you, and he's quiet. Just let him. You're gonna get your point out. Just let him.
I'm
talk.
good. Thank you.
Just let him talk.
Okay, let's pause.
You say how many people? You say it's a small subset. But for the people who it affects them for the rest of their lives. A decision they made as a child will affect them for the rest of their lives. This person will never feel their sensation on their chest. They don't know if they're going to ever be able to have a child, and they know they will never be able to breastfeed. They will never be a woman in the regular census. And this is happening more and more because we're conditioning our young people to say, hey, this is okay, this is okay. You can make these decisions. As a senior in this community, I have to say, wait a second, you guys are kids. Wait till you have your whole lives. Let's talk about this.
Honestly, shame on you for not going after the actual facts. I realize your anecdotal experiences move you, and I respect and appreciate that. But let's be perfectly clear. The most permanent thing a kid can go through is puberty, first of all. So when you deny a kid the opportunity to pause puberty, we're just talking, first of all, talk about
We're
puberty.
just gonna stop for a sec.
Oh, I know I have a lot to say.
I have so much to say.
Oh, you do not want to
Let
know
me
what
just say
I
this
have
first.
to say to that. Puberty is the
Let me
most
just say this first,
permanent
then I'll
thing.
pass it over to you
Oh
guys.
my gosh.
Do you see how quickly they're dismissing anecdotal evidence when most of their entire statements up till now is anecdotal evidence? This is my
Oh my
lived
god, I was about to
experience.
point that
This
out.
Yes.
I was about to say, wait. So anecdotal evidence is okay when it's not you?
Exactly. Anyway,
People are so
I'll
brainwashed. How do
So
they
I'll
think
open
Oh my
the floor to you
god.
guys.
children?
Lex, we
Like,
used
this
to be
will
one of
never,
those
I will
people.
never,
Let that sink in. Oh my gosh.
I will never
Well,
grasp the concept that they think it's okay to mutilate children, and they're arguing about it. And they're saying puberty is a permanent thing. Kids need to go through fucking puberty to develop properly. The ones that don't are not developed, and they have all these issues, tons
Well,
of
the
issues.
interesting thing is they're literally sitting there, the liberals in this group, and they're saying they're trying to make the argument that because it's not that many, it's comparatively not that many kids, that means it's okay. And this is what we hear on TikTok all the time. It's only a few kids. It's only, I mean, first of all, it's way more than we think it is.
Oh yeah,
But
most
number
definitely.
two,
And one is already way too many.
Well, the
one is
doctors
too many.
will transition, so they're not counted as detransitioners. If you listen to Prisha Mosley's testimony that's on my TikTok right now, she transitioned as a teenager, and the doctor is refusing to help. The one that helped her transition is refusing to help her detransition, and the doctor told her it's because I don't want you to be a guinea pig. Well, what was she when she was transitioning? A guinea
I was about
pig.
to say, yeah, what was she when she was
And
transitioned? Oh my gosh. These
all
people.
these detransitioners have the exact same story. These doctors will not help them detransition. So the numbers are astronomical since they're not counted because the doctors won't help them. This is what these people aren't understanding.
Yeah,
So
and you
that's
know, even Lex, adding on to what you said, like, I do not understand, like, what goes through these people's minds where they think it's okay to mutilate children. Because you know what? I used to be in support of all this crap until I found out that children getting mutilated wasn't just some myth that people on the right made up. Then that is the moment I changed my mind. The fact that these people know that, or, you know, they just outright deny it is mind-boggling to me.
It's absolutely mind-boggling.
I also read a study that only about 1/4 of detransitioners have reported that they've disclosed to their provider that they want to detransition because there's so much shame that they get from the rest of the community. So even if you look at the top estimate of the percentage, it's really 4 times that amount. So I think, like you brought up the great point, there's really 2 factors at play. One, doctors that won't let them detransition, so they're not counting those statistics, and the people that are detransitioning but not saying that they are. So the number is way higher than anybody thinks. And I think it's silly for them. These guys, they sit here and they're saying, they're saying if they're in the minority, then everybody should care and help them, but they don't care about this minority. So it's,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah,
no. Go ahead.
This is just it's just absolutely, it's just so ridiculous. Like, and there's so many people that are being shamed. Like, the community comes through your throat if you talk about detransitioning.
Oh yeah.
So there's a couple detransitioners in the public eye, but there's so many that won't come out and say what is actually wrong and happening to their bodies medically, and all the horrible things that come along with it, because they're afraid of the backlash. So we don't know the number, the real number. The number is so much higher than what people think. Because, like, the liberals love to argue, oh, it's only 1%. No, it's not. No, it's not.
No, it is not.
The other thing, Lex, is they're only talking about the detransitioners that have like had medical intervention and then changed their mind. There's a huge number of people that have symptoms of gender dysphoria and then change their mind. I had somebody on the podcast.
Oh yeah, isn't it like most kids end up growing out of their gender dysphoria?
It's something like 70 to 80% of people who experience significant dysphoric symptoms before puberty. It's like the percentage is something close to 80% end up being gay or bi. So if,
Yeah, I was one of those people. I thought I was
I
a boy,
was
and
one of those people, yeah. And you know what
I
really
thought I was a
scares me is the
boy,
fact that
and I want
like
everyone to call me Alex, and I screamed at people to call me Alex, and they wouldn't affirm me. Thank God.
Yeah,
And it
so
lasted
they
for
know.
like 3 months, and
So
that was that. And I grew out of it. And I like being a girl, and guess what? I'm gay.
exactly.
there's
So to
nothing
those,
wrong with that at all.
exactly, and that means nothing to these. So they're, when you hear detransition, either they're only talking about post-medical intervention, but if you're going to talk about the total number of people who think that they're the other gender at some point, then you're way over 50%.
Yeah, this is just it's absolutely absurd to me that people think it's okay to mutilate children and that children shouldn't go through puberty. Like what? That is a detrimental thing that everybody needs to go through to help your body develop properly, so you don't have medical issues.
That's
So this
exactly what
guy
went wrong
is
with Jazz Jennings' surgery.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this guy's about to talk about puberty. Let's hear.
Oh, this should be
Let's
good.
hear what nonsense he says. Okay.
Anecdotal experiences move you, and I respect and appreciate that. But let's be perfectly clear. The most permanent thing a kid can go through is puberty, first of all. So when you deny a kid the opportunity to pause puberty, we're just talking about puberty blockers.
Which straight kids do all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
Yes, since the 80s, kids have been prescribed puberty blockers for a variety of reasons. And the law you passed prevents that. So you steal from kids who would like to be able to pause the ability to further. Fewer than 3% of people who do any kind of transition regret it and go back. Fewer than 3%. Finally, I want to make this very clear. I'm not done. You were so mean to everybody else who want to talk to you. My turn.
Mario was not being mean to anybody. This
No,
is where
he
you
was
see
not.
Yeah, he didn't even say anything.
He was calm. He just opened his mouth.
This is the victim mentality. They didn't like what he was saying, so they said he's being mean. It's just the anyway.
I love that. Oh
They
yeah, and
constantly
also adding
interrupted
on
him.
to
Right, he was
Constantly
interrupted.
interrupted him.
He was interrupted 10 times in a row. He couldn't get one sentence out, and then they're saying he's
No, he
being mean.
couldn't.
Associations that has been in existence for a long time that is science-based about guidelines for these things. But to be clear, the guidelines are very specific about this is supposed to be the parent's decision with their kid, with their medical provider. What you did was rob all those families of choices.
Kids can't consent, and it's not up to the parents to chop off their kids' healthy body parts. I'm gonna say that right now.
Yeah,
It is
you
not
could
up to
say
parents'
that. I agree.
decision to make that life-changing decision for their child.
What about all the blue states that are passing laws that teachers can trans the kids without the parents' consent? Some of the blue states are so it's not even like I still don't think it's right that parents can do that to their kids, but even on the left, it's not even a consensus that parents should be involved. A lot of people on the left think it should happen behind the parents' back. So, what do you think?
This is absolutely ridiculous. And people are like, well, the parents should do whatever they want. Okay, so should a parent be allowed to beat the shit out of their child?
Right.
Apparently.
Like, where do you draw the line? Should a parent be able to SA their child? Like, where do you draw the line? If it's
should a parent be able to smoke pot with their child? I mean,
yeah.
Like, where do you draw the line?
Right.
Also, I just find it so ridiculous that this is even like a talking point in this whole thing because growing up, wasn't it part of the health class, whatever, that puberty is such a normal thing and it's a healthy thing that everyone goes through. It doesn't matter.
Yes. And yeah,
that's
Nicole,
wrong.
I was gonna say that's the weird thing because like they're talking about puberty blockers, like all the like cis straight kids that use them. It's like, sir, puberty blockers are used to make puberty occur later on in people with precocious puberty. That's what they're for. They are not used to delay puberty in perfectly healthy teens who can pump their bodies full of cross-sex hormones.
Right. There's a difference between managing some of the unpleasant. If somebody has, an overactive something, and to kind of temper the worst sensations of puberty, that's different than saying, okay, I'm going to stop my puberty in its tracks and alter the complete progress of my development. That's very
and
very
they say
different.
it's reversible, and it's not reversible. It's absolutely not reversible.
No,
Exactly.
it's not.
And the main puberty blocker that they use, which is Lupron.
Oh yeah, that
Lupron
was
is the
used to
main
chemically
one, the
castrate
popular
sex.
one. Yes, it's used to medically castrate P3DOs. How is that okay for a child?
I don't know.
Be on long term. You don't think it's going to medically castrate that child as well, especially being in a long term? Puberty. See, what this is what this is their argument that they don't they're not telling you.
And the left doesn't think anybody should have kids anymore. So.
Oh no,
Well,
of course not.
This is their stupid argument. They're like, oh well, it's been used on cis kids. It's been used on cis kids for short periods of time to correct some other medical issue, not for an extended period of time.
Right.
This is what they don't understand.
Exactly.
Was rob all those families of choices. Your opinion, because you believe you know better than science, you know better than parents, you know better than people who even do know themselves, you're going to prevent them from having options because you personally have a problem with something that a couple of people and some other people you're aware of knew. None of them are statistically significant. Maybe you've got dozens of people you know of, hundreds. That's a teeny tiny little sliver. You will never know or know of all of these people, and yet you've decided for them, and shame on you for it.
I think we all can agree, though, that even though he's passed legislation, over 18, you don't care what they do.
I don't care what they do.
You're just more so protecting the kids.
He's protecting
that
kids
are
he doesn't
going
have.
His laws more so protecting those kids that are just.
So you heard it there, folks. We shouldn't care about kids we don't have.
Yep, we just.
So then we can just let parents beat their children and do whatever. And
honestly, you know what?
children.
I'm pro-choice now. I guess I just don't care. I don't care. I mean, I should give anyone else
absolutely
the kids.
ridiculous.
I mean, we shouldn't have cared what was going on in Nazi Germany because those weren't.
No, of course not. You know what? We never should have abolished slavery. I should have stayed on the fields. Who cares? Everybody focus on themselves. Don't worry about any other issues.
Oh my God.
That's just the way of the world.
Tomboys, tomgirls, that are just they're being force-fed this idea like, oh, I'm gay, maybe I'm a girl, and then like they're just like pink. They like are more feminine and it's like, oh, actually transition. And
I don't think it's that simple.
And I just hate that
feel
this is such an
bad.
absolutist discussion on both sides because it's like you guys are like, no, there's nothing. No, don't.
I'm not being absolutist.
I'm not being absolutist either.
Okay, but I
Please
just
don't
don't
put words
think.
in my mouth.
Okay,
I'm disappointed that someone
Can you let me
is
talk,
proud
please?
to sit
Can you let
here
me
and
talk?
pass a law that harms children.
I got
when
it.
we know that our
we
queer
know your
community
point. We got it. We know your point.
so harmed already.
All I'm saying is that your guys are not making space for the people who have gone through this process and regret it. I personally know someone in the same situation that you were in, and I'm not sitting here arguing for either side because I think this is a very nuanced discussion. It used to be a 2-year process. Now it's 6 months. Those things are changing because the capital and the motive behind it is now, which I'm sure that you guys on this side are against capitalistic, healthcare. That's pushing it. And those guidelines, yes. There's a lot of money to be made in gender-affirming care.
A lot of money to the doctors who are
1.6 million per child that gets on it. That's throughout their lifetime. That's how much that
There are
pharma
so
makes
many
from
other
it.
things that kids get that make people more money.
I
than
understand that, but you're not leaving any room for nuance in this discussion.
Actually, I would argue that you guys aren't leaving room for nuance because you make a decision.
I never said a statement.
Well, okay,
on
I
it.
apologize. And for those of you that I have been mean to, I'm sorry. I love and respect all of you as people.
I don't think it's me. I
Nuance
just think it's
is
a lot.
valuable, and that's why we leave it up to the parents and the medical professionals and the individuals who are making these decisions. There are people who get hair plugs and regret it. There are people who get nose jobs and regret it. There is no such thing.
we don't
There's
give
no,
hair
I'm not-
plugs and
there is
nose
no-
jobs to kids.
there-
But kids,
no,
kids can get
the
nose
point is-
jobs, can get
Pause.
breast jobs. Of course, kids are getting this all the time.
Oh, he's done. She's waiting on us.
Sorry, I think it sounds like we're not really going to find a middle ground between some of you.
Okay, I'm gonna go on the record and I'm gonna say I'm against minors getting breast implants and nose jobs. I don't think you should be doing that shit to yourself.
No, I don't think they should be doing that to children either. Getting nose jobs. and
Yeah,
breast
no, I
implants.
don't think children should be altering their bodies. Now, if you're an adult, quite frankly, I don't care. Do what you want. But as a kid, no.
But you know what's funny about the guy in the jean cut off? God, I hate him. I want to throw punch him. The jean cut off vest. When Mario was talking about how there's a lot of detransitioners who like regret it, like because he passed that law or whatever, and he's met them, and he's like, "Give me a number, give me a number, give me a number, give me a number." Well, now he's saying that cis kids get that, and it's just a lot. It's just a lot. He hasn't said a number.
Oh yeah, hypocrisy.
What's your number? Give me a number.
The other, I'll tell you the big difference though. There's no concentrated effort to make more kids get nose jobs and hair plugs and breast implants.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's one distinction too. Kids may do that, and I'm not a fan of it. If there was a law that was going to ban it, I'd be fine with it. But there's no ideological argument that more kids should do those things.
No, there isn't.
Exactly, there is not.
But there's an argument that kids should be transitioned and get their tits cut off and get put on puberty blockers.
And there's nobody
because
fear
they're
mongering
living
that
their
if
true selves.
children
Listen,
don't
I
get
was a
nose
kid
jobs.
once too. I didn't know who the hell I was at 20 years old, let alone 15. I didn't even know who the hell I was at 25 years old, let alone 15. It took me about till my 30s to figure out who I am. And you're going to try and tell me that children know who they are. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think that, you know, jumping on what Lex said, like, you know, not knowing, you know, herself until she was like 20. I think like that's very true for a lot of, you know, people who are growing up. And I think like, and giving them the option to transition like as if it's a boob job or a nose job, I think it's very dangerous. It's like, because you can't reverse that.
But you know, the other thing is, you have to be you know, mindful of the fact that kids are the most influenceable part of our population, and you can you can influence a kid
most
to
definitely.
do anything. You can influence a kid to do anything if you package it up in a nice enough sounding way.
Exactly.
You get kids to believe in the Easter Bunny and Santa Claus.
Exactly.
And you
So
think,
imagine, you know, go ahead.
and you think that they can pick their gender? They believe in a guy who rides around in a sleigh on fucking reindeer and delivers presents all over around the world, and they can pick their gender. Okay.
Well, yeah, exactly. You said, Lex, that you were a tomboy when you were young, and imagine like if somebody said to you, "Hey, if you take this pill, you don't have to have your period. You get to not experience all the cramps and the negative sensations of having a period if you just take this medication." You could get a kid who's not even dysphoric to say, yes, I want to take that puberty blocker.
Yeah.
So imagine what you can do to a kid that's already questioning themselves. I think that's to me, it's a predatory like thing.
And it's a normal thing to question yourself as a child. You're figuring who you are out. Even
Almost
adults
definitely.
still figure themselves out. It's normal to question everything.
Right. Exactly.
Drag shows are too sexual for minors.
I think it's important to not put a blanket statement over everything.
I was just gonna say that.
Because I know already when they step forward, we're gonna get the Miss Doubtfire example, and then it's gonna be like, oh, well, why is that okay for kids and drag is not? Love a good drag show. I frequent them all the time. Most of them are not appropriate for children. Most of them, not all, but most of them. There are instances that are circulating on social media that represent a small minority of drag shows where kids are present and then it's over.
That guy in the back, the whatever his name is, he is not listening. You can tell this whole video, he's not listening to a word that's said.
No, he's
only
not.
thinking
He's
his next
listening just to
response.
respond, not to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so obvious in his body language.
I would date a trans man.
Every trans person has their own experience of what trans is. If that trans man still had downstairs, then sure, because that's the reason I'm gay. I'm a gay man because I'm a male with male body parts that likes male body parts.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Would that change, let's say if you met someone and you were attracted to them based off of what they looked like in clothes, and then you found out that their genitalia didn't match what you had expected or assumed, would you still not be interested in them?
It would hurt because I would be interested in them. That's happened before. I can be interested in a person, but at the end of the day, I'm gay. So if I go downstairs and there's nothing there, or there is a female body part, I can't perform.
So then you wouldn't date a trans man, would you? A trans man is woman transitioning to man.
Oh shit! See, it's so confusing.
Yeah, so it's like you wouldn't, because if they didn't.
Is trans man or trans woman?
Trans man.
Which is?
Woman transition to man.
Oh,
That's
shit,
why
no,
it's
I would
trans
not.
man.
No.
Okay.
You can turn around if you want.
Okay, yeah, no.
Okay.
So, reset.
I think for myself, I've never had the opportunity, I would say the privilege. Personally, it is one of those things where like what I look for in a partner is really what they bring to the table in terms of like intellectual conversation and just the way they make me feel. It doesn't really matter what you have going on. If we have good chemistry up here, like that's not gonna be a problem at all, and it shouldn't be a problem, and no one should really be conformed or confined to what they have in their pants.
I was dating someone and they were transgender and they didn't tell me, and we're like 2 months in and we actually decided to actually do something. I don't think that's fair for me though, because you're not giving me the opportunity if I still want to continue, because that's important. So that's why I don't blame anyone or have any animosity if someone doesn't want to date a trans person, because they still have their preference. And if they are gay, it's not just gender that's important, it's also their sex that's important too. And we don't want to disregard sex as well and what their sexual identity is, because that is important to someone else.
I also think, just based on the idea that you're talking about with sex, there's so much more to sex than just penetration or sucking on something specific. I think that there's a lot of different ways to enjoy sex and being sexual with your partner. I also think, for us to sit here and think about the trans experience is completely unfair because we don't go through it. Right. And so for someone who is trans to think about disclosure is safety. For me personally.
Okay, so this whole lot, the root word of sexual orientation, I know, he came forward by accident and I loved it. I know.
It is.
I mean, for
Amir
me,
is great.
The root word of sexual orientation is sex. It's what sex are you attracted to. It's not what gender identity you're attracted to. It's what sex are you attracted to.
Yeah,
So
literally. I'm attracted to people's sex, not their gender.
Sleeveless jean shirt guy is trying to say, well, sex is nuanced, and no, it's really not. I mean,
no,
it's really not. But also, I love how he's also trying to say now that if you're not trans, you shouldn't talk about it. Meanwhile, he was getting so fired up earlier. I actually want to address something specific that this guy with the jean shirt was saying, and that was that it's dangerous for trans people to disclose that they're trans. I would actually argue that. Okay, I would not.
I'm pretty sure it's more dangerous to hide that, actually, because you're always talking about,
right.
Trans people are going to get killed. Okay,
right, now,
so what do you think's going to happen if you don't tell him?
Right. Well, the way I'd put it, Raven, is if somebody is violent towards a trans person for withholding that they're trans until they're like having sex, they're usually I would view it as the violent act, which isn't acceptable.
No, not at all.
It's occurring because they lied, not because they're trans.
LGBTQ topics should be taught in school.
I'm gonna sit in the middle.
I think age appropriate for sure.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it's nuanced. It's age and grade. That depends on that. But I mean, there's definitely times growing up when I was in the closet in middle school, I'm like, okay, we're taught men and women, they get together and then they have a baby or whatever, especially like 9th, 10th grade. But like for gay people, something that doesn't exist. We don't like women. So like, what is my experience? I'm not reading it in a book. I'm not seeing it anywhere. I'm having to run to the dark corners of the internet. I'm having to experience all these things that they shouldn't just be going through. We should be teaching something at least. But
and it goes back to the
grade appropriate.
over-sexualization thing. It's like when people say are iffy about gay topics being brought up in school, it's like, oh, the sex. But it's like, no, like, right? Like, why can't we learn about wholesome relationships, hold them, or like,
and just
having good credit, like,
having good credit.
making good financial decisions, people of the same, like, just things that are so much bigger.
Well, yeah, and that's why I originally was hesitant to step forward, because there is a fine line. People are talking about the Don't Say Gay bill or the Parental Rights and Education bill in Florida, which was up to grade 3. It's important for kids to know that
Haven't they changed that though?
Yes.
Have they changed it since
It goes up to
okay,
12th
well then,
grade now.
Either way. Well, when it was originally up to grade 3, that's when I would say I agreed with it, right? Because I don't think that it is the government's place to teach my future child about sexuality. Now, hear me out. This is why it's a gray area. When teachers open the discussion to young children about sexuality and inherent sexual attraction, it puts them in a position where they could step on the toes of parents. And that's what I don't agree with.
I totally understand where you're going with sexuality. I totally understand what you two said, age appropriate. I think when you're talking about sexuality, that's like sex, that's in terms of like sexual education, sex ed. That's literally what they teach in school. So that
right,
those
and
types
I'm not
of
for
talks.
that either, which is the point I was going to make.
Okay.
I don't think, I'm a conservative who favors small government. I don't think it's the government's place to teach anyone's kids about sex. And I know there are kids that may need to learn about it because their parents aren't good parents, but I don't think that exception makes the rule.
And
Please,
that's
with the
good for
waiver.
you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
good
go
for
ahead.
you, but it's taught. With the way the world is moving now and the way that the community is just so open and so expressive, and the child is gonna see regardless. So like he was saying, instead of going to, the dark web or, just looking stuff up on your own and having no guidance, if you're gonna teach somebody or if somebody's gonna learn it, you rather them learn the correct way.
I can totally get down with that too. You want to have parental rights in what they're saying. My whole point is that it has to be all or nothing. We can't keep straight sexuality and then
I agree. I agree.
I'm the one, always the one.
Hey girl.
Always me.
Sorpresa, sorpresa. I'm just kidding.
I was listening in, and Clarkson kind of made the point that the government really shouldn't be in the business of teaching your children about your sexuality. No one taught us how to be gay. Who taught you how to be gay? Anybody? Was it the internet? Okay. It would have. Yeah.
My uncle actually, I didn't know he was gay.
So it was a family member.
Yes, I didn't know he was
so
gay,
for,
but
for me, as a gay man who grew up with parents who were very, very prudish, they had no idea. They didn't even want to have a conversation. I am that example that should have been taught at school, but I learned. I figured it out on my own, just like many of us ultimately do. I know as an individual, it would have helped me if someone in my own family.
What Mario was saying, where nobody taught us how to be gay, we just figured it out.
Yeah, no, especially me. I've had crushes on guys and girls since elementary school.
Also, I don't agree with the statement. I think it was the guy with the Hawaiian shirt made that that if you're not being taught in school, the only stuff that exists is the dark corners of the dark web. There's a lot of
Yeah, no, there's a lot of
there's a lot
especially
of stuff
now.
Yeah. Well, when
And you know what I thought was so funny? Like, due to my ignorance, because, children have, like, that childhood ignorance, I thought everyone was bisexual. I didn't even know, like, there was a word for it. I thought just everybody was attracted to men and women, and then I had to find out the hard way that that's not how that works.
Well, yeah, and I think when I was taught when I took health class in high school, we weren't taught, and this is before things got really woke in school, we weren't taught about...
Lucky.
I know, I forgot I'm so much older than Raven.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very young. A lot of people forget that.
So when I was in health class, though, we weren't taught about heterosexual sexuality. We were just taught about the anatomy of how to make...
And the functions of how men and women work.
Of the sperm and the functions of the ovary.
Yeah.
It wasn't about sexuality. We never used the term straight or heterosexual. It was just about the anatomy. It wasn't about...
It was just about the reproductive system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's the weird thing. I'm just like, why do you have to teach gay stuff? It's not like they're sitting there showing all that straight stuff, teaching kids, all right, so here's that position. You do this. Like, no, that's not what they're teaching.
Yeah,
I've never seen anything of, okay, so you put your tongue here, you go in this position, you flip like that. Like, no, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, somebody snuck their phone into a class, and I saw on YouTube, somebody was learning in their health class about how if you get your prostate tickled in your butthole, and it's like,
I'm sorry. I'm a
seen
teenager. Remember, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That's not funny.
Yeah.
So guys, I wanna thank all of you again for coming on. I'd love to have either of you back on another time.
Hopefully my internet will be better.
Yeah, how could you do this to me on my special?
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so selfish.
But anyway, yeah, I hope you guys found this conversation fun.
It was great.
I'll put everybody's handle on the bottom, and yeah, I hope everybody has a great night. Thanks for watching, everybody.
I will.